we continue the storyline. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was invited to the meeting by the Mayavada sannyasis, Prakashananda Saraswati. So we just continue that line. So text 70. Prabhaveda kiye toma shakshat narayana inachara korahene itika karana. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. You look as brilliant as you were Narayan himself. Will you kindly explain the reason that you have adopted the behavior of low-class people? Please repeat. You look as brilliant as if you were Narayan himself. Will you kindly explain the reason that you have adopted the behavior of low-class people? Report by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Due to renunciation, Vedanta study, meditation, and the strict regulative principles of their daily routine, Mayavadi sannyasis are certainly in a position to execute pious activities. Thus, Prakashananda Saraswati, on account of his piety, could understand that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not an ordinary person, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shakshat Narayana. He considered him to be Narayan himself. Mayavadi sannyasis address each other as Narayana because they think that they are all going to be Narayana or merge with Narayan in the next life. Prakashananda Saraswati appreciated that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had already directly become Narayana and did not need to wait until his next life. One difference between the Vaishnava and the Mayavadi philosophies is that the Mayavadi philosophers think that after giving up their bodies, they are going to become Narayan by merging with his body. Whereas Vaishnava philosophers understand that after the body dies, they are going to have a transcendental spiritual body in which to associate with Narayana. I'll read the verse again. You look as brilliant as you were Narayan himself. Will you kindly explain the reason that you have adopted the behavior of low-class people? Before I read this verse, I'll just read one beautiful verse from a collection of Caitanya Ratmala, which is nectarian verses from Chaitanya Mangala, Chaitanya Bhagavata, and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Vande Sri Krishna Chaitanya Nityanando Sahodito Gaudodaye Pushpavanto Chitro Shando Tamo Nudav. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, who are like the sun and moon. They have risen simultaneously on the horizon of Gauda to dissipate the darkness of ignorance and thus wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. May the Supreme Lord, who is known as the son of Srimati Sachidevi, be transcendently situated in the innermost chambers of your heart, resplendent with the radiance of molten gold. He has appeared in the age of Kali by his courseless mercy to bestow what no incarnation has ever offered before, the most sublime, radiant mellow of devotional service, the mellow of conjugal love. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. So, if you have been attending last few weeks Chaitanya Charitamrita classes, you know that there's a discussion taking place here which has very important significance, especially for preachers of Krishna consciousness, how to deal with Brahmavadi, impersonalists, and Mayavada philosophers. And so there is a gradual introduction to the differences of the philosophy. But there's a very thorough, extensive explanation in the Madhya Lila, chapter 25, where Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami systematically defeats the Mayavada philosophy, bringing references from various Shastras, particularly from Srimad Bhagavatam and other Puranas as well, coming to the conclusion that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ishvaraha Paramaha Krishnaha Satchit Ananta Vigraha Anadir Adir Govindaha Sarva Sarva Karanam Vigraha. So this word is very significant because Lord Brahma Samhita, he clearly states Krishna has a beautiful form, transcendentally, eternally beautiful form, Sat Chit Ananda, Vigraha. Vigraha means form. He's a personality, extraordinary personality. So before we can even defeat the Mayavada philosophy, we have to establish the understanding that Krishna is a divine person, the supreme divine. When we speak about the personality, naturally there are characteristics, symptoms. He's got pastimes, he's got activities, he's got pleasure and displeasure. Just like in an ordinary sense, we can kind of somehow understand the behavior. On the other hand, Krishna is not like an ordinary person. He is an extraordinary, unique. He is the supreme perfection, complete, the ultimate transcendence. He is the most divine, most pure. Krishna is the supreme pure. So when we chant his holy names, naturally we expected to at least have an awe and reverence, whether we can have an access to that divine pastimes or name and qualities of the Lord. At least we have the awe and reverence that we're dealing with Krishna, Hare Krishna, Radha and Krishna. So we chant the names of Krishna with love and appreciation and gratitude. And by the mercy of Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, we have the opportunity to practice, to purify our consciousness and our existence. Then gradually we become more aware that Krishna is the most beautiful personality. So just like Srila Prabhupada says, the end of the purport, that the clear difference between the Mayavada philosophy and the Vaishnava philosophy is that the Vaishnavas are aiming to have a relationship with Krishna, a very close, kind of enjoyable, pleasurable pastimes with Krishna in their next lives. It's not like emerging into some kind of impersonal feature we call Brahma Jyoti, or some kind of Brahman existence, which is also temporary, because living entities are not meant to be there. They just have an experience there because of their inclination or misunderstanding. The Brahmavadi philosophy, impersonalist, they have an incomplete understanding of transcendental reality. So they don't have a complete understanding. But at least they're not offensive. They're not denying Krishna's personality. They just don't understand exactly how it works. So they get caught up in a partial understanding, incomplete understanding. Because it is true, God has an impersonality also through his energies, especially Prakriti. But that energy is emanating from a source. Sarva Karana Karanam, cause of all causes. Krishna actually the cause of all causes. So he is the ultimate personality and everything emanates from him. So the Mayavada philosopher take it to another level. They deny deny Krishna's personality, concluding that this is all Maya. Therefore they are called Mayavada, everything is Maya. And so they have a very, very impersonal and very offensive outlook towards Krishna's creation, to the point that they even think that by their practice they can become Krishna, one with Krishna, Narayana. And sometimes in some part of India they even address each other, Narayan. So that's not, we can imagine how offensive to Krishna. Just like completely denying Krishna. So they think the deities are also just an imagination of some uncultured man, like how Prakashan and the Saraswati kind of addressed Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. How come you behaving like a low-class person, uncultured man or fanatic? Because you're just chanting, dancing, you're not studying the Vedanta Sutra, you're not studying the science, but you claiming to be self-realized. But of course, he was puzzled by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's effulgence and beautiful qualities of humility. And there are some nice classes, the last few Caitanya Caritamrita verses here about humility. Humility is a very, very important, I would say, fundamental part of our devotion service. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifesting all these sublime qualities, humility, knowledge, effulgence, potencies, shaktis. Of course, he is Krishna himself. He is not an avatar. He is Krishna himself. Avatar can mean expansion, and according to the expansion, there are lila avatars, yuga avatars. They manifest for a particular reason, a particular purpose. They have a mission. But when Krishna comes, the Swayam, the original Krishna comes, or when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes, they directly Krishna themselves. Therefore we call Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is directly Krishna. Of course, at that time, not everyone could understand or realize his position. They just, they were confused who he was, because naturally he took initiation into sampradaya, which is not really a Vaishnava sampradaya. So he took initiation from Kesa Bharati, who coming from these Mayavada lineage. They had their own sampradaya also, lineage. But of course, Vaishnavas don't accept that. They're more like upper sampradaya. The interpretations, they're not really based on authentic Vedic Siddhanta. And so they had a misunderstanding of the position of Mahaprabhu. And he indirectly offended Mahaprabhu already. You're already offensive. He's saying, you have adopted the behavior of a low-class people, because they don't understand the exalted position. Therefore they judge Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a sentimentalist. And we can see that in the material world, when one exhibits humility, kindness, compassion, love, and some kind of willing to do good to others, like helping others, either it's a spiritual purpose or philanthropic purpose, or most people kind of take it as a sentiment. They not take it as much of a kind of a rational kind of thing. Sometimes they justify, yes, we have to open hospitals and help feeding the poor, and They have some kind of material justification. But when you come to the spiritual platform, they're kind of looking at this as a, as a sentiment or fanatical. So the Mayavadis are very quick to criticize. They make so many offenses. So Caitanya Mahaprabhu had incidences when he had debates with Mayavada sannyas, especially Prakashananda Saraswati, who was the head of the Mayavada school at that time. And as we know, even in just the recent history of India, like go back to 2, 3, 4, 5 centuries since Caitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance, there are some, I would say, philosophical forums or debates amongst Mayavada and Vaishnava school, especially down South India, where Sri Ramanuja Sampradaya very powerfully representing the Vaishnava Siddhanta. And also Madhvacharya, they have a reputation of defeating the Mayavada. So when it comes to interpretation, it can be very confusing. Therefore, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu warns that one should not study the literatures published by Mayavadi interpretation, by Mayavadi scholars. It can be very confusing because they're using the Vedic texts, Devanagari texts, and they have a very good understanding of Sanskrit grammar, so they can subtly change things, alter the meanings. And so one has to be very careful. To receive real knowledge, transcendental knowledge, divya, jnana, we have to follow a very pure, unchanged version of the teaching, which is coming down from the 4 major sampradaya, which is still existing. There used to be more sampradayas, but in Kali Yuga it's only 4 left, and even then they're struggling. Some of them are struggling because they kind of, the age of Kali is such that unless you actually take shelter of a Sankirtan mission of Mahaprabhu, very difficult to uphold your spiritual practice. Therefore, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu says there is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way except chanting of the holy names of Krishna. So this is the most recommended Yuga Dharma, the Sankirtan Yajna. That's why the Acharyas, Mahabhagavata Acharyas, especially the Goswamis, Narottama Das Thakur, Lokanath Das Goswami, Lochan Das Thakur, coming down to Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, Gorakishore Das Babaji Maharaj, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada, coming down to our spiritual masters, representing the very essence of Vaishnava culture, Vaishnava Siddhanta, which is actually understanding that we have a sambandha, we have a relationship with Krishna, we just have to reignite, we have to reawaken that feeling of love. And we speak about love, it's not just a sentiment, it's actually an experience, it has to be felt, it has to be realized. It's a very internal meditation. Externally, we may be engaged in so many activities of devotional service, but actually, what Krishna sees is the condition of our heart. How attached we are to Him, how much affection we have, how much we are selfless to Him. And of course, Mayavada scholars, they couldn't understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's position. They said, oh, you're just a sentimentalist or behaving like a low-class person, chanting on the street, and you don't like a crazy man. So they don't understand, they don't have the access, they don't have the mercy, they don't have the blessings. But of course, it's up to the devotees also. Purity is the force. If you're very, very convinced, if we have the conviction, we have the strength, then we can have an impact on the society. We can have an impact. And we just have to have that faith. If I just simply follow the instructions of my spiritual master and remain in devotional service and serve the devotees in a humble state of mind, sincerely, somehow or other, render some service according to our capacity, then Krishna gives all the intelligence, all the strength. He will empower us. Therefore, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami states in many chapters, different parts of the Caitanya Charitamrita, is that only by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu one can preach Krishna consciousness. One has to be empowered by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There's no other way. But to receive the mercy of Guru and Gauranga, we have to have that, I would say, ready to serve mentality, like service attitude, favorable. So we are favorable to do service, whatever we can do for Krishna. Krishna is seeing our service attitude, not necessarily the externals. You just give yourself, give your nature, give your individuality, creativity, give your whatever you can offer to Krishna, offer it to Krishna. Then you'll be satisfied, you'll be content, and you'll have the potency, you have the Shakti, you have the energy to have a positive impact on others. And this is a whole preaching mission on the behalf of Mahaprabhu. And that's why we can see that perfected devotees, especially our Mahabhagavata acharyas in our line, coming down to the last few centuries, they were so powerful, especially Bhakti Saranta, and the recent, and now Srila Prabhupada. You can see, just the symptoms and the result. They had impact on the whole world. Of course, this cannot be imitated, but we can somehow or other get the mercy and be an instrument for Srila Prabhupada and for our spiritual master and the Vaishnavas. Let's become a representation of our spiritual master. Therefore, the devotees should conduct themselves humbly with knowledge. And when we encounter Mayavada or Brahmavada philosophies, we have to have knowledge. We have to able to defeat them. And if you like to know exactly how to defeat, there's a very systematic presentation by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in Madhya Lila of Caitanya Charitamrita, chapter 25. It's about 300 slokas. It's a long chapter. It's a very, very long chapter, probably one of the longest chapters I've ever seen. But very beautiful, and goes systematically, establishes the Vaishnava Siddhanta, and gradually takes it to another level where it defeats and finds the weakness of the Mayavada philosophy. You see, to defeat the Mayavada philosophy, you also have to know their weaknesses, their weak points. That's the best way. Just like when Srila Prabhupada was preaching in the West in the early days, and some Christian and Buddhist scholars, they're debating with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada knew how to defeat them. He just found a weak point, and they were just kind of pressing that, see? Just like sometimes, Christian or other religions, they have their dogma, they have their own understanding, interpretation. So they kind of imposing their interpretation. And Prabhupada just clearly could understand, wow, you're speaking eloquently, you speak very articulate, beautiful scriptural texts, but you're missing the point. He said, thou shalt not kill, for example. He said, do not kill. So, they don't follow principles, so they cannot have an access to a transcendental realization. So Prabhupada knew how to kind of find a weakness and press him. So same with Mayavada, there's so many weaknesses they have, because they don't have the clear understanding. They have a very partial and offensive understanding. Therefore, the Mayavada sannyasis, when Prakashananda Saraswati speaking to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they were amazed by the potency of Mahaprabhu, of course, but then they couldn't understand such a brilliant personality, such a transcendently beautiful personality, full of Shakti, transcendental Shakti, energies, potencies, could just dance and chant and not study Vedanta Sutra. Actually, it's perplexing to the atheists and the Mayavada and the Brahmavada how someone can just dance and chant and be ecstatic. And obviously they have no faith in the holy names. They don't have understanding or realization of the Sri Nama, the holy names of Krishna. Therefore they kind of judge it. They don't understand. So they accuse the devotees just being fanatics or sentimentalists or low class. Chanting sincerely, from the heart, purely, for Krishna's pleasure. If we can do that, then we get all the blessings, we get the essence, we get the Vedanta. Vedanta means the end of the Vedic teachings, the end conclusion, the ultimate conclusion. So that's what we are after. We want to understand what Krishna teaching us, who he is, and what's our relationship with him, and what to do about it. So we follow a process, so we can actually reignite that love, devotion, feelings, and then we are truly happily situated. This is the way to perfect our spiritual life. When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu had a discussion with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he was a great Brahmavadi, impersonalist, but he was not offensive to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He actually invited him, and he wanted to show his knowledge of Vedanta. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was patiently hearing him, of course, and defeated him. But at least he gave him respect. He was not offensive to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we have to, if we actually want to acquire and develop real knowledge and understanding, then we have to have that humble submission. We have to hear, we have to try to analyze it and put up good questions in front of the spiritual master, trying to kind of comprehend and realize it. Then of course the answers are there. And you can see that Ramanuja Sampradaya, they always defeated the Mayavada. Even now, there are big debates in South India. Srirangam, Tirumala, Tirupati, sometimes Mayavada sannyasis coming in defeat, trying to kind of defeat the Vaishnavas. But the Vaishnava Sampradaya is very powerful because Ramanuja was very powerful and he was defeating all the Mayavadi scholars. So Ramanuja is the prominent acharya of the Sri Lakshmi Sampradaya, very authentic Sampradaya, and they have a very thorough understanding of Yajurveda. So they follow the path of Yajurveda. But they acknowledge the Bhagavad Purana, they acknowledge other Sampradayas also, but they follow a particular lineage. And Ramanuja is actually the most prominent acharya in their line, see? And so he's a very, very powerful teacher. In our line, Madhvacharya, see? That's why we say Brahma, Madhya, Gaudiya Sampradaya. So Madhvacharya was also very, very powerful. And these personalities were very successful defeating the confusion, the Mayavadi interpretations. And now we can see that Mayavada philosophy is spreading all around the world, unfortunately. And even Srila Prabhupada himself was perplexed what to do because they're so confusing people. And but we have to have faith in Mahaprabhu and the teachings and try sincerely to present without any compromise. We're not compromising the philosophy to suit some kind of Mayavada. And you can see modern universities, colleges, they're very much kind of contaminated by this impersonalist Mayavada understanding. They don't, and scientists also, they have their own scientific dogma. Say, for example, quantum physics, which is a very, very impersonal way of understanding who God is. But there's some kind of understanding there, because they're kind of analyzing things, but they don't have the complete understanding. But most of these people in the Western world, they're not meaning to offend Krishna. They're just kind of victimized. The real offenders are the Mayavada scholars in India, especially, because they study the Vedanta Sutra, they study the Vedic grammar, Sanskrit grammar, and they interpret it. And they actually directly attacking Krishna, saying this is Maya, this form is Maya, everything is Maya here. And so, although they may admit that this is having a reality also, but it's all Maya really, we're none of these. We all become Narayan at the end, next life. But they have I would say, a utopian understanding of spirituality. They don't understand that actually we are actually being punished by the laws of nature here, Prakriti. So we're not really to be here to be Narayana. We're here to be servants of Krishna. So they're having a very, very difficult understanding. But of course, Srila Prabhupada was emphasizing the distribution of Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, particularly Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, because that gives a standard. I would say people can study these books and come to the right understanding. So he wanted his disciples, especially in the early days, to distribute Srimad Bhagavatam to libraries and universities and colleges. For example, when I was in Canberra, in the Australian National University, they're teaching Sanskrit grammar, and they're using Srila Prabhupada's books now as a Sanskrit grammar, as a text. So Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavata, amazing. So they're using Sanskrit. So you can see the books are getting in there. So it's a question of, for them to read and study, of course, but the presence of the books are there. And of course, Bhagavatam is like, it's really like a physical manifestation of Vyasadeva. It's like an incarnation. They may not realize, but the books, like deities, they're installing them. And so many libraries, including Australia and worldwide, they're having Srila Prabhupada's books, the entire. And most universities have their libraries, and they have all Prabhupada's books out there too. So the scholars, intellectuals, academia, they acknowledge that there is a great value here, although they don't have an access to the spiritual teachings, but they can see it's a literally masterpiece. So this is one of the most effective way to counteract Mayavada, impersonalist, offensive attitude towards the Vaishnava theology, Vaishnava teachings. So this is one of the best things we can do. On the other hand, if we are not qualified to enter a debate with a Mayavada scholar, especially some of these lineage, Sampradaya, they are very, very knowledgeable of the Vedic metaphors and Sanskrit, and they're using a Vedic they're very much in the Vedic studies, of course, so that's why they can be confusing even to us, because they twist the Bhagavad Gita so much that it can confuse us, see. So, but of course it depends on the devotee how faithful and how advanced he is, but generally not recommended to debate with them, because we can't defeat them, because they're so kind of, rigid in their kind of, I would say, so-called convinced of their But actually, as an observer, we can see, reading Srila Prabhupada's books, that they're actually wrong. But they don't admit, because they don't have any access to real teachings, because of the offensive attitude. But of course, Mahaprabhu, if we see the storyline here, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. He has the potency, he has the power, he is able to convert them, attract them, and explain things to them systematically. So at the end, we can take inspiration from that. Of course, we can't imitate Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but we can somehow or other purify our existence. So we become also powerful preachers on the behalf of Guru and Gauranga. We can have an impact on people. Purity is the force. So, and that ultimately, that's what people see, the symptoms of devotional service, our qualities, our actions. Actions speak louder than words. So if we actually acting Krishna consciously, manifesting all these nice qualities, that's probably the most important for a preacher, someone who represents Vaishnava Siddhanta. Without those qualities, although we may have book knowledge, scriptural knowledge, or scientific understanding of things, but then we don't have the effect. Purity, see? When I came to Krishna consciousness, the very first thing I noticed, the devotees' qualities, beautiful qualities, kindness, compassion, they're ready to help me always, encourage me. These qualities, I never forget these. These were the very essence of the philosophy, actually, because they loved Krishna, they loved Prabhupada. So I felt that. I wanted to be like them. Yes, I want to try. So the experience. So the Mayavadis don't have that purity. They just have some intellectual jugglery, using Sanskrit grammars, metaphors. So they confuse people. They're very superficial, actually. And therefore they don't have actually any solution. Mayavada doesn't help anyone, but Krishna consciousness helps everyone. All living entities, by the way. And so, although it's not everyone has the great fortune to come to Krishna consciousness, not everyone, most people won't, because it's just the material world, and Kali Yuga especially, a very turbulent age. But whoever came to Krishna consciousness, they have an appreciation, gratitude that wow, we got such a value, such a beautiful teachings, we can actually make us happy and content, and we have a full, meaningful life. But the Mayavada philosophy, they may be very convinced of their teachings, but there's what symptoms they have. There's no humility, there's no tolerance, envious, wanting to debate with the Vaishnavas. There's no attraction. I'm never attracted to Mayavada. Honestly, I heard the philosophies, I never attracted. There's no qualities and nothing. But the Vaishnavas are very attractive, because it's all about love and kindness and nice qualities, beautiful qualities. And more advanced we are, the qualities manifesting more and more, becomes very shiny, attractive. That's why you see sometimes when we see advanced devotees, they're very peaceful, calm, and they have nice qualities, compassion. And very attractive. See, that's how we should, that's what aspire for, to become actually real devotees. Humble, kind, not sentimental, but that is the symptoms of someone who loves Krishna, understands the philosophy, engages in devotion service. Then we can be beneficial for the rest of the world. We can have an impact. Because you can see so much suffering out there. People searching for solution. There are many sincere seekers also. They just don't have the answers. They have patch-up solutions. And there are many intelligent people out there sincere seekers who are actually searching for Krishna but just don't know how to find it. They not consciously, but kind of they're searching for solution, searching for some kind of ending their suffering, because they don't have the understanding, so they can only come to a patch-up solution, patching up this problem, that problem, but the problem remains. And in the material world it is a difficult place. And Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, in many, many places, that you see from the highest planet, from Brahma Lokas, down to the lowest, see, all places of repeated birth and death, miserable places, see. So it doesn't matter where we are, what position we are in the material world, we still have to face these the realities of material life. And by coming to Krishna consciousness, we have a solution here. So let's treasure it, let's value it. We should not miss this opportunity. We should try our best. And even Srila Prabhupada says in many lecture tapes that we have a human life is a very rare opportunity. And out of those humans who have the opportunity, somehow they got the opportunity, they should definitely try their best to develop their Krishna consciousness. Because life is very temporary, and in one way very short in the material world, because we have to kind of, if we don't utilize our time correctly, then we're wasting valuable energy, valuable time. Rupa Goswami says in Caitanya Caritamrita is that a moment of time cannot be purchased by millions of gold coins. See, if we're wasting one moment even, see. So we should be vigilant. I know it's not easy sometimes because we get caught up in the external activities throughout the day and throughout our lives. But somehow be conscious of that, not to waste time. Let's remember Krishna, let's remember the pastimes of Mahaprabhu, chant the holy names of Krishna, serve the devotees nicely, and trying to develop a better understanding of spiritual life so we can remain tolerant, because in the material world there's always going to be problems. So be tolerant, titikshava, tolerance. And of course Krishna also explains how the Brahmanas work, how the Kshatriyas work, what are their qualities, symptoms. These are all the external symptoms. The Vaishnava is above that even. Vaishnava's got very beautiful qualities, which not even a so-called Brahmana has. So the Vaishnava was aiming for the highest treasure, Krishna consciousness. And that's how we can actually defeat the Mayavada, with our simple, loving, devotional service to Krishna, purity. Then of course we have so many books. We can defeat the Mayavada by actual philosophy, and we can actually rationally, systematically defeat them. So it's not like, oh, okay, Mayavada. We're not afraid of them. We just don't want to waste time because we can't convince them. So what's the use? Just like in the old days when I was distributing books in Sydney, and sometimes we encountered all these Buddhists and Christians and all these different kinds of people, and they were trying to defeat us. And at some point I realized, wow, I'm wasting my time because we can't convince them. So we don't waste time. The best thing we can do is, if they're not offensive directly, then we can give them some prasadam. Depends on who they are. But in India they can be quite rigid, sometimes, not always, but sometimes, because they all Vaishnava, no good, wrong understanding. No, the Vaishnavas have the real understanding. So we should be convinced. And this chapter leads us into that gradually. Prakashananda Saraswati and the Mayavada scholars, they realized Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message, his purity. And they actually, by that attraction of Mahaprabhu's potency, they all became Vaishnavas. Amazing. So, and just like Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, when he came to the West, he had encounters with scientists, academia, professors, scholars, even Mayavada scholars, Buddhists, and often listen to these room conversations. Prabhupada patiently defeats them nicely, but such a way that they don't realize that they're getting defeated, but they realize that, wow, Prabhupada has something. So Prabhupada always defeated them. He knew how to defeat them with his love and compassion and the idea is to defeat them such a way that they realize something, and so they come closer to Krishna. It's not just an intellectual debate, who's right, who's wrong, not that kind of. We defeat them for their benefit. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, he could defeat anyone in any subject in favor of the Krishna consciousness, developing the Krishna consciousness. And someone challenged him through mathematical kind of understanding, let's say mathematics. He could defeat them in mathematics to make them understand actually, you can see everything's pointing, all the formulas pointing towards an ultimate solution. And in physics, he could also defeat them, because Bhaktisiddhanta was expert in mathematics. He studied proper Vedic mathematics, Sulba Sutras, and he was an astrologer. He could understand the cosmic environment, Surya Siddhanta, very, very intelligent in every topic. So anyone came to him, trying to defeat him, he could just defeat them on that level, mathematics or astronomy or whatever. Of course, extraordinary intelligence. And we have devotees also within the movement who are very, very knowledgeable of sciences, archaeology, mathematics. Really, they're writing books called Bhaktivedanta Institute, defeating the scientific dogma, which is again contaminated by Mayavada. The scientists, they're kind of bewildered by all these things, while even if they're attracted to some kind of extraordinary kind of so-called spiritual forces, they don't see that God is actually behind. There's a personality behind this, a divine personality. They rather have an impersonal conclusion, like quantum physics or whatever. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu brings the attention of the Mayavadi sannyasis that actually there's a solution here. And so he defeats them by quoting the Bhagavatam, Vyasadeva, all the great Raja Rishis, their teachings, the Puranas. So he defeated them. Even just by his personal presence, he defeated them, but he also defeated them intellectually, shastrically. So we should study the Shastras very carefully in the association of devotees and try to comprehend it, try to realize this. And then we have an impact. And when we have an impact on the world, then we can actually do service to Krishna. We are actually helping the world. So Prabhupada came for that. So we are instruments of Prabhupada, really, trying to be good devotees and trying our best to contribute to the society of Vaishnavas and to the preaching mission of Mahaprabhu. Are there any questions? Yes, Prabhu, just.
Maybe if there is a difference between Mayavadi and Brahmavadi.
Brahmavadi, they're called impersonalists. They don't understand that they just have the incomplete understanding. Because it is true that God has a personality and also impersonality at the same time, see? Energy and energetic, see? The source of the energy. So Krishna is the source of the energy, the energetic. So and he's got his prakriti, the energies, see? And so he has that impersonal feature also. But ultimately he's a person, everything emanates from him. So the Brahmavadis, they see that way. See, it's like an impersonal thing, but they don't have the clear picture that the God is actually a person. So they have an impartial, not offensive, they just don't know, they're just lacking in that knowledge, see. So they're having difficulty to accept Krishna's personality, but they're not meaning to deny him, they're just incomplete. Just like when you study mathematics, obviously a primary school kid can't understand postgraduate mathematics. You can't understand. You're trying to understand the basics. So they're on a basic level. But they're not necessarily deny that there's a higher possibility. They just call Brahmavadi, like Brahman, impersonal, see? Brahma Jyoti. So Krishna's energy is effulgence and energies. But the Mayavada, they're directly denying, no, there's no such a thing, it's all Maya. It's all illusion. So they're impersonalist to start with, but they take it to an offensive level. See, they actually deny, attacking Krishna, saying this is Maya. Krishna is not real. This is just Maya. That's what they call Mayavada. Just like if I speaking to you, but I not giving you attention, like in a personal way, you feel offended. Oh, so we don't want to offend anyone. We deal with everyone personally. We have a personal dealings. We're not impersonalist. Everything is personal. Look at our society. It's all, we're all individuals. Unfortunately, moving towards very impersonal in the Kali Yuga. But ultimately, we are still persons. You see. So, in a spiritual sense, definitely, it's a personal interaction, the living entities, and Krishna himself, and we're all part of his creation, and we meant to cooperate with his plan, Krishna's plan. And then we cooperate with that, then we feel also charged, energized, and happy. So we want to be happy with Krishna consciousness. We're not just here because of scholarship or some scriptural knowledge, but we are here to be devotees. Shri Chaitanya Caritamrita ki jai. Hare Bol.